Even the wisest of kings can falter, and Solomon was no exception. Behind the facade of grandeur and hidden wisdom, there was a vulnerability that gradually led his reign to the brink of collapse. Today, we will delve into all the minute details described in the Bible pages, from Solomon's ascent to the throne to his final days. I believe this meticulous work deserves that you leave your like and subscribe to the channel to help us spread this video. Solomon, son of King David and Bathsheba, is a notable figure in the Bible scriptures, known for his wisdom, wealth, and pivotal role in building the Temple of Jerusalem. Solomon's rise to the throne of Israel occurred in a context marked by familial intrigue challenges following David's death. His son Adonijah attempted to take the throne, but the prophetic intervention of Nathan and Bathsheba ensured that Solomon, chosen by God, was crowned king. God's revelation to David, in which he was told that Solomon would replace him and build the temple in Jerusalem, occurs in the first book of Chronicles, chapter 22. God said, "You have shed much blood and have waged great wars. You are not to build a temple in my honor because you have shed much blood on the earth in my sight. However, you will have a son who will be a man of peace and rest. I will provide peace and quiet for all his enemies around him during his reign." Solomon, known for the meaning of his name, which translates as peace, began his reign by promoting stability and unity within the kingdom. The most prominent characteristic of Solomon that distinguished him among leaders of his time was his extraordinary wisdom. Solomon made a significant covenant with God during the early days of his reign, a moment that not only showcased his wisdom but also his intention to seek divine guidance in governance. This covenant and its terms are documented in the first book of Kings, chapter 3, verses 3 to 14. The key event occurred in Gibeon, where Solomon offered sacrifices before the Lord. That night, God appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." In response, Solomon expressed his humility, recognizing the burden of responsibility to lead the people of Israel. He specifically mentioned his need for wisdom to judge and govern justly, acknowledging his absolute dependence on God to guide his steps and make wise decisions that would benefit the people of Israel. Solomon's choice to prioritize wisdom over riches or personal success demonstrated his desire to lead with integrity and justice, reflecting the heart of a wise and God-fearing leader. God's response to Solomon's plea was remarkable. He praised the king's choice and, besides granting the wisdom Solomon asked for, also promised additional blessings, including wealth and honor unmatched throughout the history of Israel. A famous episode that illustrates this wisdom is the case of the two women disputing the maternity of a child. The narrative, found in the first book of Kings, chapter 3, verses 16 to 28, describes two women who lived together and gave birth at the same time. However, one of the children died, leading both women to claim the surviving child as their own. Faced with this deadlock, the women appeared before King Solomon for justice. Instead of making a hasty decision, Solomon proposed an extraordinary solution. He suggested dividing the child in half, giving each woman a part. The response of each woman revealed the true mother. The woman who genuinely loved the child begged the king not to harm the child and instead suggested that the child be given to the other woman. The other woman, who was not the biological mother, agreed with the proposal of division. Solomon's astute response revealed the true mother, the woman willing to give up the child to protect it from harm. Solomon then proclaimed that the true mother was the one who demonstrated genuine maternal love and ordered the child to be handed over to her. Besides his wisdom, Solomon also became known for his remarkable achievements, including the construction of the Temple of Jerusalem. This grandiose project not only served as the spiritual center of the kingdom, but also symbolized the continued presence of God among the people of Israel. The grandeur of the temple showcased not only Solomon's administrative skill, but also the wealth and prosperity of the kingdom. The desire to build a temple for the Lord was initially conceived by his father, King David. However, it was Solomon who carried forward this noble project. The biblical narrative describes intricate details and precious materials, like cedar from Lebanon for the structure and pure gold for adornments, used in the construction of the temple, reflecting the king's dedication and reverence to God. The chosen location for the temple, Mount Moriah, had a profoundly symbolic significance, being the same place where Abraham demonstrated his faith by being willing to sacrifice his son Isaac. This act of faith and obedience, which preceded the temple, highlighted the continuity of the special relationship between God and his people. Solomon's temple became the spiritual and cultural epicenter of Israel, a symbol of unity and worship. Solomon also dedicated himself to international alliances, solidifying trade and diplomatic relations. The visit of the Queen of Sheba, who came to test Solomon's wisdom, is a notable example of these external relations. These events are recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 10, verses 1 to 13, and in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 9, verses 1 to 12. Upon arriving in Jerusalem, the Queen of Sheba presented Solomon with difficult questions, testing his wisdom. The Bible relates that Solomon answered all her questions, and there was nothing he could not explain. The Queen's journey to Jerusalem was marked by an impressive caravan carrying a wealth of spices, gold, and precious stones. The exchange of gifts during her visit highlighted the diplomatic nature of the encounter. Beyond the visit from the Queen of Sheba, Solomon also established diplomatic relations with other kingdoms. He made marital alliances with princesses from neighboring nations such as Egypt and Phoenicia, a common practice at the time to strengthen alliances and promote peace among kingdoms. However, throughout his reign, Solomon was not immune to faults. Although celebrated for his wisdom and grandeur, his story is also marked by mistakes and deviations that eventually had significant consequences for his reign and the history of Israel. One of Solomon's main deviations was his involvement with foreign women, in contradiction to divine instructions. The Bible reports in the first book of Kings, chapter 11, verses 1 to 3, that Solomon had many foreign women besides the daughter of Pharaoh, and took princesses from neighboring nations contrary to God's law, which prohibited marriages with women who worshipped other gods. These marriages were not just political alliances, but also introduced foreign cultural and religious influences into Israel. The foreign wives brought with them their religious practices and gradually exerted a negative influence on Solomon. He began to tolerate the worship of various idols and to participate in rituals that were contrary to the exclusive worship of the God of Israel. The climax of this deviation was the construction of temples for idols in honor of the deities of his wives, an act that directly contradicted the commandments given by God. This apostasy, which included the building of altars for foreign gods, marked Solomon's last days, as reported in the first book of Kings, chapters 11 and 12. These chapters were marked by a mixture of glory and shadows, revealing the complexities of life and governance as Solomon aged. His earlier choices, especially concerning marriages with foreign women and the acceptance of foreign idol worship, began to negatively impact his reign. God's wrath manifested, and he raised adversaries against Solomon. Jeroboam, a trusted officer, rebelled against the king and became a prominent leader who would eventually lead the tribes of the north. Solomon's death marked the end of an era. He died after a reign of 40 years, leaving a legacy that included the majestic construction of the Temple of Jerusalem and unprecedented peace and prosperity. The Bible does not provide specific details about the exact cause of Solomon's death. However, in the first book of Kings, chapter 11, verses 41 to 43, it is recorded as follows. The rest of the acts of Solomon, all that he did and the wisdom he displayed, are written in the book of the Acts of the Kings of Israel. Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son succeeded him. With the death of Solomon, his son Rehoboam assumed the throne, leading to the division of the kingdom of Israel into two, the northern kingdom led by Jeroboam and the southern kingdom, mainly composed of the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, led by Rehoboam. Thus, Solomon's last days were followed by a tumultuous transition for his son, who saw the kingdom his father built divided under the weight of the consequences of his choices. The story of Solomon is a poignant reminder of the importance of ethical and spiritual decisions, as well as the long-term consequences of those decisions on the life of a leader and the destiny of a nation. If you've made it this far, I understand you must have enjoyed the content, so I ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments about Solomon's story. Hugs and stay with God.